The coronavirus done what nothing else could do in the White House, that is get everyone apparently on the same page when it comes to confronting China. An article in the Washington Post says, among other things, this: as recently as January, the administration appeared to be prioritizing good relations with Beijing in order to preserve the Phase 1 trade deal. But now, given China's gross mishandling of the pandemic, those arguing internally for more leniency have largely come around to a more hawkish stance, tracking Trump's own turn away from his praise of China and its friendship with Chinese President Xi Jinping. The author of that column, Josh Rogin, is joining us right now. He writes for the Washington Post. He's a CNN analyst. So tell us what you've discovered, because you really did some important reporting on all of this, how the administration, when it comes to China, is getting its act pretty much in sync.
Sure. Well, what Christina said is right. U.S.-China relations are souring fast. The bromance between President Trump and President Xi seems to be over. Now, you could say that the Trump administration is using the pandemic to blame China, and that's partially true, but it's also the fact that China's behavior has convinced a lot of people inside the administration who weren't previously for harsher measures to take on those harsher measures, to stand up to a lot of things that the Chinese government has done that are pandemic-related and not pandemic-related. Those 24 companies that she mentioned that got blacklisted, they got blacklisted because they're contributing to atrocities against Uyghur Muslims inside China, right? That G7 statement against Hong Kong, that's a reaction to China's clampdown with a new national security law that violates their agreements on Hong Kong. So there's plenty of blame to go around, but what we see is that everyone is coming around to the realization that more needs to be done on China.
And as you write and point out, President Trump himself has clearly shifted on his position as far as China is concerned. But you think he's taking as hardline a view as some other key members of the Trump administration?
Yes, President Trump has soured on China. He feels betrayed by President Xi because he did praise China and President Xi at the beginning of the pandemic, only to learn later that a lot of what the Chinese government was putting out was false, and a lot of what they weren't putting out was important, and they're still hiding it. So yes, President Trump has decided that preserving whatever was going well in the relationship, which wasn't a lot, but it was something, is no longer enough to stop the people in his administration from doing a lot of things that a lot of people think are overdue, like standing up to Chinese economic aggression, standing up to Chinese repression, and also pushing back on the security sphere. So you're seeing a big shift, but it's not just Trump. It's Trump, it's his administration, it's Congress, both parties. And if you read the poll, the American people agree. Something has to change in the U.S.-China relationship. It's a risky way to go, but at this point, a lot of people inside and outside the administration don't feel we have a lot of other options.
And certainly the Vice President, Mike Pence, he pushed this messaging during an interview on Sirius. Listen to this.
Well, China let the world down, and the World Health Organization was their willing partner in withholding from the United States and the wider world vital information about the coronavirus that would have made it possible for us to stand up a national response sooner. I mean, it's remarkable to think China didn't even let American CDC personnel in on the ground until mid-February to find out what was going on.
The Vice President didn't have specifics on what the U.S. would do to hold China accountable, but do you have any insight, any sense of what might happen?
Sure. Well, there's not a lot to do right now against China regarding the pandemic in particular. What you see is a lot of other measures coming off the shelf that had been sitting there for a while, including the blacklisting of companies, including banning Wall Street indexes from sending American investor money to China, including the human rights stuff. The Congress will pass the Uyghur Human Rights Bill next week, and the president is expected to sign it. So if you look around sort of the U.S.-China relationship, you'll see a lot of things that are going to start to happen that the Chinese government is not going to like. Now, again, of course, the Trump administration is using this to distract from their own domestic failures, and they're going to have a big problem rallying a lot of countries to the cause, considering how they've treated all of our allies and partners over the last 3 years. But at the same time, we have to recognize that part of the blame for this belongs on the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese government, which did do a lot of the things that Pence just said. They did hide information, they did lie about the virus, and they are perpetrating atrocities at home and expansion abroad. So it's a complex relationship that has to be carefully managed. But right now it's all going in one direction. That direction is down.
Very strong reporting by Josh Rogin. Thank you very much, Josh, for joining us.
Thank you.